The ring caught the morning light as she reached for the coffee pot, and something inside me died a little more. My wedding ring. On her finger. In my kitchen. Sarah moved through my house like she owned it, humming some tune I didn't recognize while she made breakfast for my husband. The same breakfast I'd made him for 12 years. The same kitchen counter where we'd planned our future, where we'd kissed after every argument, where I'd cried the night I found out I couldn't have children. Now she was pregnant, 5 months along. Her belly curved beneath the silk robe that used to be mine. Michael walked in behind her, adjusting his tie. The same tie I'd bought him for his promotion last year. He glanced at me sitting at the kitchen table, and for a moment, something flickered across his face. Guilt, maybe. Or annoyance that I was still there, still existing in the space that no longer felt like home. The morning sun streamed through the windows, highlighting the dust motes dancing between us. 3 people in a kitchen. 2 of them in love. 1 of them dying inside. I'd been here for 3 weeks now, since he'd announced that Sarah would be moving in. Since he'd explained, with the patience of someone talking to a particularly slow child, that this was the most practical arrangement. She needed stability during her pregnancy. The baby was coming. I could stay, of course, but things were going to change. The ring caught the light again as she buttered his toast, and I had to look away. 3 months ago, I'd noticed Michael working late more often. Coming home with that distracted look men get when they're thinking about someone else. The signs were all there, painted in neon, but I'd chosen to look past them. Love makes you willfully blind sometimes. 2 months ago, I'd found the receipt for jewelry I'd never seen. A necklace worth more than my car. I'd asked about it, casual and light, and he'd said it was for his sister's birthday. His sister who lived in Portland and hadn't spoken to him in 5 years. 1 month ago, I'd seen them together at the coffee shop downtown. Her hand on his arm, his eyes bright with the kind of attention he used to give me. She was everything I wasn't. Younger, obviously. Blonde where I was brown. Confident where I'd become careful. Pregnant where I was empty. But the ring was new. 3 weeks ago, when Sarah had moved in, I noticed it immediately. She tried to explain it away, said it was just a piece of jewelry she'd picked up at an estate sale. But I knew every curve of that band, every tiny imperfection in the diamond. It was mine, had been mine for 12 years. I'd confronted Michael that night, in our bedroom that was now just my bedroom. He'd been packing more of his things, moving them to the guest room where Sarah waited. The conversation had been brutal in its simplicity. Yes, it was my ring. Yes, he'd given it to her. No, he didn't see the problem. We were separated, weren't we? It was just a piece of metal and stone. It shouldn't matter. But it did matter. That ring was the last thing holding us together, the final symbol of what we'd been. And he'd given it away like it meant nothing. Now I watched her wear it while she made him breakfast, and I felt something cold settle in my chest. Not heartbreak anymore. That had run its course. This was different. Sharper. Sarah glanced at me over her shoulder, her smile sweet and pitying. She was trying to be kind, I could tell. In her mind, she was simply a woman in love, making the best of an awkward situation. She probably thought she was being gracious by allowing me to stay. Michael kissed her goodbye, his hand lingering on her belly. He used to touch me like that, back when we still believed I might carry his child someday. The doctors had said there was nothing wrong, just one of those things. Keep trying, they'd said. It'll happen when it happens. It never happened. But Sarah had managed it in 3 months. The front door closed behind him, and the house fell into that particular silence that comes after someone important leaves. Sarah hummed her way through cleaning up, still wearing my ring, still carrying my husband's child, still living in my house. I went upstairs to what used to be our home office. Michael's laptop was still there, plugged into the charger. He'd been careless lately, leaving it unlocked, trusting that I was too broken to be dangerous. The banking app was already open. Joint accounts, separate accounts, credit cards, investments. 12 years of marriage had intertwined our finances in ways that would take lawyers months to untangle. But I wasn't thinking about divorce lawyers anymore. I was thinking about Sarah, downstairs in my kitchen, wearing my ring. I was thinking about the way she'd looked at me this morning, with that mixture of sympathy and superiority that women get when they've won something you didn't even know you were fighting for. I was thinking about the baby, and how Michael's eyes had lit up when she told him. The same light that had dimmed, month by month, every time my period arrived right on schedule. The laptop screen showed small numbers, simple transfers. Nothing that would trigger alerts or raise red flags. Michael had always been careful with money, methodical. He thought in long-term strategies, careful investments, slow and steady growth. But he'd forgotten that I'd been handling our household finances for 12 years. I knew every account, every automatic payment, every hidden investment he thought he was so clever about. My fingers found the keyboard, and I began to type. Sarah was still humming downstairs. The sound drifted up through the floorboards, mixed with the gentle clatter of dishes. Domestic bliss, I supposed. The life she'd stolen from me, tidied up and served on a silver platter. But stealing was a two-way street, and I just remembered how to play the game. The first transfer was small. $500 from Michael's personal checking account to a new account I'd opened that morning. A practice run, to see if the system would flag anything unusual. The notification came 3 minutes later, a text to Michael's phone that was sitting on the desk beside the laptop. Account activity alert. He'd ignored it if I knew him at all. Michael got dozens of notifications every day, most of them meaningless. The second transfer was larger. $2,000, moved from our joint savings to 3 different accounts I'd opened at different banks. Digital breadcrumbs scattered across the financial landscape. Sarah's humming stopped. I heard her footsteps on the stairs, slow and careful. She appeared in the doorway, one hand on the frame, the other on her belly. The ring caught the afternoon light streaming through the office window, and I wanted to scream. Instead, I smiled. Just checking our accounts, I told her. Making sure everything's in order. She nodded, that same sweet smile playing across her lips. Michael said you handled all the financial stuff. That must be nice, having someone you can trust with that kind of responsibility. Trust. The word hung in the air between us like smoke. Oh yes, I said, turning back to the laptop. He trusts me completely. Sarah lingered for a moment longer, then padded back downstairs. The humming resumed, a different tune this time. Something classical, maybe. The kind of music pregnant women were supposed to listen to for their baby's development. My fingers found the keyboard again. The third transfer was the largest yet. $10,000, moved from Michael's individual investment account to a holding account I'd established using my maiden name. It would take him days to notice, weeks to trace. And by then, I'd have moved it again. But money was just the beginning. I opened the filing cabinet beside the desk, the one Michael thought he'd locked. The key was where he'd always kept it, taped to the back of the bottom drawer. 12 years of marriage had taught me all his tricks. Inside were documents, insurance policies, investment statements, the deed to the house, tax returns going back 7 years. Everything that made Michael Anderson who he thought he was. I began to photograph them with my phone, page by page. Not stealing, exactly. Just documenting. Creating my own paper trail. Sarah's voice drifted up from downstairs, talking to someone on the phone. Her mother, probably. They'd been planning the baby shower. I'd heard them discussing it. A celebration of new life, new beginnings. The future they were building on the grave of my marriage. The fourth transfer was $15,000. This one came from an account Michael had thought was secret, something he'd established a few months back. His escape plan, maybe. Or hers. My phone buzzed with an incoming text, and I glanced at it. Michael, asking if I'd seen any unusual account activity alerts. His phone was probably lighting up like a Christmas tree by now. I typed back. Nothing unusual. All normal monthly transfers. Why? The response came immediately. Just checking. Bank systems have been glitchy lately. Bank systems. Right. I moved another $12,000, this time splitting it between 4 different accounts. The money danced across the digital landscape like water finding its way downhill, following paths only I could see. Sarah's phone conversation had ended. The house fell quiet except for the soft sounds of someone moving through familiar rooms. She was nesting, I realized, making this place hers. The thought should have hurt. 3 weeks ago, it would have destroyed me. But something had changed. The pain had crystallized into something harder, sharper. Something useful. I opened Michael's email account. The password was the same one he'd been using for years, our wedding anniversary followed by our old house number. He'd never been very creative with security. The emails painted a picture I'd expected but hadn't been prepared to see in black and white. Months of planning, intimate details shared, promises made. The whole sordid timeline of their relationship, archived and searchable. But buried in the business emails was something more interesting. Correspondence with a lawyer. Divorce papers, already drawn up and ready to be filed. A strategy session scheduled for next week. I was going to be served with papers. Soon, probably. Michael had been planning this for months, maybe longer. The separation, the request for me to stay in the house, Sarah's pregnancy. All of it had been choreographed. Except for one thing. He'd assumed I would remain passive, that heartbreak would keep me frozen in place while he dismantled our life piece by piece. He'd forgotten that I was the one who'd balanced our checkbooks for 12 years, who'd filed our taxes, who'd managed every financial crisis we'd ever faced. He'd forgotten that behind every trusting wife was someone who'd learned to be very, very careful with other people's money. I transferred another $18,000, this time from accounts he'd established in both our names. Joint assets, which meant I had every legal right to access them. The beauty of marriage, really. Everything belonged to both of us, until a judge said otherwise. My phone buzzed again. Michael, calling this time instead of texting. I answered on the third ring, just enough delay to sound casual. Hey. His voice was tight with controlled panic. Diana, I'm showing some weird account activity. Large transfers I don't remember making. You haven't done anything with our accounts today, have you? Define weird, I said, clicking through to another investment account. I moved some money around for the utilities and car payments. Standard stuff. No, these are larger. Thousands of dollars. Moving out of accounts we barely touch. I said, transferring another $22,000 while we talked. That does sound weird. Have you called the bank? There was a pause, the sound of papers shuffling. I'll call them now. But Diana, I need to ask you to please not access any of our accounts until I can figure out what's happening. There might be some kind of fraud situation. Fraud. The word almost made me laugh. Of course, I said. I'll stay out of everything until you get it sorted out. Thank you, he said, relief evident in his voice. I know this is all complicated right now, but I appreciate your understanding. Understanding. Another word that hung in the air like smoke. After he hung up, I sat in the quiet office for several minutes, staring at the laptop screen. The numbers were larger now, spread across more accounts. Substantial amounts, but not enough to trigger major alerts. Not yet. Sarah's footsteps sounded on the stairs again, heavier this time. She appeared in the doorway, looking tired. Everything okay? She asked. I heard Michael calling. Just some banking confusion, I told her. You know how technology can be. She nodded, but something in her expression had changed. The sweet sympathy was still there, but underneath it was something sharper. Calculation, maybe. Diana, she said, stepping into the office. I wanted to talk to you about something. I closed the laptop and turned to face her. What's that? She sat down in the chair across from the desk, her hand going automatically to her belly. The ring caught the light, and I felt that familiar stab of recognition. I know this situation is hard for you, she began. I can't imagine what you're going through, but I think it might be better if you found somewhere else to stay, at least for a while. Better for who? For everyone, she said, and now the sympathy was gone entirely. You're clearly struggling, and having you here isn't helping anyone process this properly. Michael feels guilty, I feel awkward, and you're just torturing yourself. I nodded slowly. You're probably right. She seemed surprised by my easy agreement. Really? Really? I've been thinking the same thing, actually. This arrangement isn't working. The relief on her face was almost comical. I'm so glad you understand. Michael was worried about bringing it up, but I think it's the mature thing to do. Very mature, I agreed. I'll start looking for apartments tomorrow. That's wonderful. And Diana, I want you to know that this doesn't have to be hostile. We can all be adults about this. Adults. Right. After she left, I reopened the laptop and began working in earnest. The afternoon sunlight slanted through the office window, marking the passage of time in golden rectangles that crept across the floor. The money moved like water, flowing from account to account, always staying just under the thresholds that would trigger immediate fraud alerts. By evening, I'd relocated nearly $70,000 across 8 different banks. But money was just the appetizer. I opened Michael's business email account and began forwarding messages to addresses I'd established. His client list, his current projects, his professional contacts. Not enough to damage his business, just enough to create copies of everything. Then I moved to his personal email. The love letters to Sarah, the divorce planning documents, the careful timeline of their relationship. All of it forwarded to secure accounts, documented and archived. Sarah made dinner, something that smelled expensive and complicated. The kind of meal she probably thought would impress my husband, show him what domestic life could be like with someone who had energy for elaborate cooking. I ate with them, making small talk about my apartment search, about the baby, about anything except the elephant in the room. Michael seemed distracted, checking his phone every few minutes. The banking alerts were probably becoming impossible to ignore. I talked to your bank, he said during dessert. They said the transfers all came from accounts with proper authorization. Nothing fraudulent. That's good news, I said. Must have been some kind of automatic investment thing you set up and forgot about. He nodded, but his expression remained troubled. Maybe. I just can't shake the feeling that something's wrong. Sarah reached across the table and covered his hand with hers. My ring caught the dining room light, sending tiny rainbows across the walls. Stress, she said. You've been carrying so much lately. The business, the baby, everything with Diana. It's natural to feel overwhelmed. Everything with Diana. As if I was a problem to be solved rather than a person to be considered. After dinner, I excused myself and went upstairs. Michael's laptop was still plugged in, still logged into everything. He'd gotten careless, probably assuming that the banking confusion was just a glitch. I transferred another $30,000, this time from investments he'd forgotten I had access to. Long-term holdings, retirement accounts, the nest egg we built together over 12 years of marriage. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. I opened it to find a message from my sister Kate, who lived across the country. Saw your Facebook post about the separation. Are you okay? Call me. Facebook post. I hadn't made any Facebook posts. I logged into my account and found it immediately. A status update, posted an hour ago, announcing my separation from Michael and asking for prayers and support during this difficult time. The comments were already accumulating, friends and family expressing shock and sympathy. I hadn't written it, but someone with access to my accounts had. The laptop screen showed Michael's browser history, and there it was. My Facebook account, accessed from this computer 2 hours ago. The post had been made from his session. He'd used my own social media to announce our separation. To control the narrative, probably. Get ahead of any rumors, shape the story in his favor. I deleted the post and changed my passwords, but the damage was done. My phone was already ringing with calls from worried friends. Something cold settled in my chest. Not anger anymore. Something else. Something that felt like justice. I opened every account Michael had access to and began the process of changing passwords. Social media, email, banking, investments, everything. The work was methodical, careful. I documented each change, each locked account, creating a paper trail of my own. By midnight, Michael was effectively locked out of his own digital life. His Facebook account suspended, his email passwords changed, his banking access revoked. It would take days to sort out, assuming he could prove his identity to the various institutions. But I wasn't done. I opened the last investment account, the big one. The retirement fund we'd built together, worth nearly $400,000. The nest egg that was supposed to carry us through our golden years, the security blanket we'd sacrificed for throughout our marriage. Michael had been planning to split it with me in the divorce. 50-50, probably, or maybe 60-40 in his favor since he'd been the primary earner. But the account was in both our names, established when we were young and stupid and in love. Either of us could access it independently. I moved the entire balance to a new account I'd established that morning. Every penny transferred in a single transaction that would take 3 business days to process.
My phone rang.
Michael, calling from downstairs. I answered, keeping my voice sleepy. Hello. Diana, I'm sorry to wake you, but I need to ask you something directly. What's wrong? Someone has been accessing my accounts, changing passwords, moving money, large amounts of money, and it's all coming from inside the house. I sat up in bed, turning on the lamp. What do you mean? I mean, all the activity is showing up as originating from our home network. Diana, have you been accessing my accounts? The question hung in the air like a challenge. I could deny it, play innocent by myself another day or two. Or I could tell the truth. Yes, I said. The silence stretched for so long, I thought the call had dropped. Yes, he finally said. That's it? Just yes. What else would you like me to say? I'd like you to explain why you've stolen nearly $100,000 from our accounts. Stolen, I repeated. From our accounts. The accounts with both our names on them. Diana, you know that's not how this works. Actually, Michael, that's exactly how this works. We're married. Everything belongs to both of us until a judge says otherwise. Another long pause. What do you want? The question was simple, but the answer was complicated. What did I want? My husband back? My ring back? My life back? I want you to come upstairs, I said. We need to talk. I heard Sarah's voice in the background, asking what was wrong. Michael's muffled response, then footsteps on the stairs. He appeared in the bedroom doorway, looking haggard. The man I'd married had been confident, sure of himself. This version looked lost. Okay, he said. I'm here. What do you want? I gestured to the chair by the window. Sit down. He remained standing. Diana, if you're angry, I understand. But taking money isn't going to solve anything. Angry, I said. Is that what you think this is about? What else would it be about? I looked at him standing there in the bedroom where we'd shared 12 years of marriage, and I felt something shift inside me. Not love, not anymore. But not hate either. Something else. Something like pity. Take a seat, Michael. Please. He sat down, and I could see the exhaustion in every line of his body. The weight of maintaining 2 relationships, 2 households, 2 versions of himself. Do you remember our wedding day? I asked. The question clearly wasn't what he'd expected. Of course I remember. Do you remember what you said during your vows? Diana, what does this have to do with anything? Humor me. He sighed, running his hands through his hair. I said I would love you and honor you, and keep only unto you as long as we both lived. Keep only unto you, I repeated. That was the promise. People changed, Diana. We changed. We grew apart. When did we grow apart? I don't know. Gradually. Over time. When did you start sleeping with Sarah? The directness of the question made him flinch. Diana. When? Last year. November. November. I'd been planning our anniversary dinner in November. 12 years of marriage, and I'd wanted to do something special. I'd made reservations at the restaurant where we'd had our first date, bought a new dress, arranged for time off work. He'd canceled at the last minute. Work emergency, he'd said. Important client meeting that couldn't be rescheduled. November. I said, while I was planning our anniversary dinner. He looked away. It wasn't planned. It just happened. And when did you give her my ring? It wasn't your ring anymore. We were separated. We were separated because you were sleeping with someone else. Because you'd already made the choice to end our marriage. The ring was just the final insult. He stood up, pacing to the window.
Okay, yes.
I made mistakes. I hurt you.
I'm sorry.
But what you're doing now isn't going to fix anything. You're right, I said. It won't fix anything, but it might balance the scales a little. What scales? I opened the laptop and turned the screen toward him. The banking information was still displayed, showing the transfers, the new account balances, the systematic relocation of everything we'd built together. His face went white. Diana, this is crazy. You can't just take everything. I'm not taking everything. I'm taking what's mine. That's not how divorce works. We're not divorced yet. He stared at the screen, then at me. What do you want me to do? Leave Sarah? Come back to you? Is that what this is about? The question hit me like a physical blow. A month ago, that might have been exactly what I wanted. The fantasy of him realizing his mistake, choosing me, coming home. But looking at him now, I realized I didn't want that anymore. I didn't want him back. I wanted something else entirely. I want you to understand what you've done, I said. I want you to feel what it's like to have everything you've built taken away from you. So this is revenge. This is justice. He sat back down heavily. Diana, please. Sarah is pregnant. We need stability right now, not financial chaos. You should have thought of that before you gave her my wedding ring. The words hung in the air between us like a blade. He stared at me for a long moment, and I could see him processing the weight of what he'd done. Not just the affair, not just the betrayal, but the casual cruelty of giving away something that had meant everything to me. I can't undo that, he said quietly. No, you can't. So what happens now? I closed the laptop and looked at him. The man I'd married, the man I'd trusted with my heart and my future, the man who'd given my wedding ring to another woman. Now you go downstairs to Sarah and tell her that things are about to get complicated, I said. Because tomorrow you're going to wake up and discover that your access to our joint accounts has been revoked. Your business credit cards will be frozen. Your investment accounts will be tied up in legal knots that will take months to untangle. His eyes widened. Diana, you can't do that. I have employees, obligations. You should have considered that before you decided to destroy our marriage. This will hurt Sarah too. And the baby. The manipulation was so obvious, it almost made me laugh. Sarah has her own resources, her own family, her own life that doesn't depend on taking mine. I stood up and walked to the closet, pulling out a suitcase I'd hidden behind the winter coats. What's that? He asked. My exit strategy, I said. I'm leaving tomorrow morning. Where are you going? Away. Far away. Somewhere you can't find me until I decide I want to be found. He stared at the suitcase, then at me. Diana, this is insane. You can't just disappear with our money. Watch me. I began pulling clothes from the closet, folding them carefully into the suitcase. Essentials only. Everything else could be replaced. The courts will find you, he said. You can't hide money in divorce proceedings. There won't be any divorce proceedings. What do you mean? I turned to face him. I mean, I'm not filing for divorce. I'm staying married to you, Michael. For as long as it takes. The color drained from his face. You can't do that. Actually, I can. Marriage is a contract. Either party can refuse to dissolve it. You'd have to prove abandonment or adultery to get a divorce without my consent, and that takes time. Years, sometimes. And during that time, all of our assets remain jointly held. That's not legal advice, Diana. You don't know what you're talking about. I pulled a folder from the suitcase and tossed it onto the bed. Legal consultation yesterday afternoon. Turns out I know exactly what I'm talking about. He opened the folder and began reading. I watched his expression change as he processed the information. The legal complexities, the time requirements, the financial implications of a contested divorce. "This is vindictive," he said. "This is survival." I finished packing and zipped the suitcase closed. Everything I needed to start over, condensed into 50 pounds of fabric and memory. "Diana, please. We can work this out. We can negotiate something fair." "Fair," I repeated. "What would be fair, Michael? What would be a fair trade for 12 years of marriage, for the home we built together, for the trust you destroyed?" He was quiet for a long moment. "I don't know. Neither do I. So I'm taking everything I can carry and leaving the rest for you to figure out." I picked up the suitcase and headed for the door. He didn't try to stop me. In the hallway, I paused at the top of the stairs. Sarah was down there, probably listening to every word. The other woman, wearing my ring, carrying my husband's child, living in my house. I went downstairs quietly, my footsteps muffled by the carpet. Sarah was in the living room, curled up on the couch with a book. She looked up as I entered, her eyes going immediately to the suitcase. "You're leaving tonight?" she asked. "First thing in the morning." She nodded, but something in her expression was different, less confident than before. "Michael told me about the money situation." "Did he? Are you really going to make this as difficult as possible?" I set down the suitcase and looked at her. Really looked at her, trying to understand what Michael saw. She was beautiful, yes. Young and bright and full of possibilities. Everything I'd been once, before life had worn me down to sharp edges and careful words. But she was also wearing my ring. "Sarah," I said softly, "can I ask you something?" She nodded, wary now. "When Michael gave you that ring, did he tell you it was mine?" She looked down at her hand, twisting the ring around her finger. "He said it was from his previous marriage, yes. And that didn't bother you?" She was quiet for a moment. "He said the marriage was already over, that you were separated. He said it was just a symbol, and symbols only have the power we give them." I almost laughed. That sounded like Michael, turning betrayal into philosophy. "Do you want to know what that ring means to me?" I asked. She looked up, meeting my eyes. "Yes. It means 12 years of believing in something that turned out to be a lie. It means trusting someone completely and having that trust used against me. It means the difference between the woman I was and the woman I am now." She was quiet, her hand still playing with the ring. "Sarah, I'm not going to make this difficult because I hate you," I continued. "I'm going to make this difficult because you're both counting on me to be weak. You're counting on heartbreak to keep me frozen in place while you build your life on the foundation of mine. That's not what we're doing, isn't it?" She looked away, her hand moving to her belly. "We're trying to figure out how to move forward without hurting anyone more than necessary. Remove the ring." The words came out harder than I'd intended. Sarah's eyes snapped back to mine. "Excuse me? The ring. Take it off." "Diana, I don't think." "Take it off." We stared at each other for a long moment. I could hear Michael's footsteps upstairs, pacing back and forth in the bedroom. Probably on the phone with lawyers, trying to figure out how to undo what I'd done. Sarah slowly twisted the ring off her finger and held it out to me. I took it, feeling the familiar weight of it in my palm. 12 years of marriage, reduced to a few grams of gold and carbon. It looked smaller than I remembered. "Thank you," I said. She nodded, rubbing her naked finger. "What are you going to do with it?" I looked at the ring, then at her, then at the house around us. This place that had been my home, my sanctuary, my future. Now it was just a building, filled with other people's plans. "I don't know," I said, "but it's mine to figure out." I put the ring in my pocket and picked up my suitcase. "Sarah, can I give you some advice?" She nodded. "Be careful. Michael is very good at making promises he can't keep." I left her sitting on the couch, one hand on her belly, the other rubbing the place where my ring had been. The hotel room was anonymous and clean, the kind of place where people went to disappear for a while. I sat on the bed with my laptop, watching the numbers dance across the screen. The money was still moving, still finding new hiding places in the digital landscape. My phone buzzed with a text from Michael. "We need to talk. This has gone too far." I typed back, "I'll call you tomorrow." Then I turned off the phone and put it in the drawer. The room was quiet except for the hum of the air conditioning and the distant sound of traffic. I opened the laptop and began the final phase of my plan. The business accounts were next. Michael's company, the firm he'd built with my help and support, taking out second mortgages and eating ramen dinners so he could afford to start his own practice. His success was built on our joint sacrifices, funded by our joint dreams. But the business was in his name only. I had no legal claim to it, except for the loans. 3 years ago, Michael had needed capital to expand. The banks wouldn't lend to the business without collateral, so we'd secured the loans against our house. Our joint house, with both our names on the deed. If the business defaulted on those loans, we'd lose the house. But if the loans were called in early, the business would be in immediate financial distress. I called the bank at exactly 9 a.m. the next morning, using the account access codes I'd memorized years ago. The conversation was brief and professional. As a guarantor on the business loans, I was within my rights to request immediate payment of the outstanding balance. The bank would send a demand letter within 48 hours. Michael called me 20 minutes later, his voice tight with rage. "Diana, what the hell are you doing?" "Protecting my interests," I said. "You're going to destroy my business." "Your business will be fine. You just need to find alternative financing." "In 48 hours? That's impossible." "You're a resourceful man, Michael. I'm sure you'll figure something out." The silence stretched between us like a wire. "Diana, I'm begging you. Please, don't do this." The word begging hit me like a physical blow. In 12 years of marriage, I'd never heard Michael beg for anything. He'd been confident, self-assured, always certain he could handle whatever life threw at him. Now he was begging me. "I have conditions," I said. "Name them." "First, Sarah moves out of the house immediately. Today." "Diana, she's pregnant. She needs to find somewhere else to live." "Second, you file for legal separation through proper channels. No more games, no more hiding assets, no more posting on my social media accounts." "How did you?" "Third, we negotiate the financial settlement through lawyers. Real lawyers, not your divorce strategy session. And if I agree to all of this, I'll release the business loans and return access to enough operating capital to keep your company running." "Not all of it."
No, not all of it.
"Think of it as an insurance policy." Another long pause. "I need to talk to Sarah." "You have 6 hours. After that, I start making more phone calls." I hung up and sat in the hotel room, staring at the phone in my hands. The power was intoxicating and terrifying at the same time. For 12 years, I'd been the supportive wife, the background player, the one who made sacrifices so he could shine. Now, I was the one holding the cards. The ring sat on the nightstand, catching the morning light through the hotel window. I picked it up, feeling its weight, remembering the day Michael had put it on my finger. We'd been so young, so certain that love was enough to carry us through anything. Maybe it had been for a while. But love without respect, without honesty, without basic consideration for the other person's humanity, that wasn't love at all. It was just habit dressed up in pretty words. My phone rang. Sarah's number. I answered, curious what she would say. "Diana, it's me." Her voice was small, tired. "Michael told me about your conditions. And I wanted to ask you something directly. Are you doing this because you want him back, or because you want to hurt him?" The question was more perceptive than I'd expected. "Does it matter?" "It matters to me. If you want him back, I'll step aside. I don't want to fight another woman for a man who doesn't know what he wants." I was quiet for a moment, considering. "Sarah, do you love him?" "Yes." "Do you think he loves you?" "I thought so. But now I'm not sure he's capable of loving anyone except himself." The honesty in her voice surprised me. "What do you mean?" I mean, he's terrified right now. Not of losing me, not of losing the baby, but of losing control, of not being the one making all the decisions. She was quiet for a moment, then continued. Diana, I need to tell you something. About the ring. My hand went automatically to my pocket, where I'd kept it since taking it from her. What about it? He didn't just give it to me. He sold it to me. The words hit me like a physical blow. What? He needed money last month. Quick money, cash. He said he had an investment opportunity, but he was short on liquid capital. He offered to sell me the ring for $2,000. I sat down heavily on the hotel bed. You paid him for my wedding ring. I knew it was yours. He told me it was from his previous marriage. But he said you were getting divorced, that you'd agreed to sell your jewelry to help split the assets. He made it sound like I was doing everyone a favor. The room seemed to spin around me. Not just given away.
Sold.
He'd sold my wedding ring for $2,000. Sarah, why are you telling me this? Because I think you deserve to know the truth about who you're married to. After she hung up, I sat in the hotel room for a long time, staring at the ring in my hand. The symbol of our marriage, reduced to a commodity. Something to be liquidated when he needed cash. The betrayal of the affair had been devastating. But this was something else entirely. This was a calculation, a business transaction, a complete reduction of everything we'd shared to dollars and cents. My phone buzzed with a text from Michael. Sarah will be out of the house by tonight. We can talk about the rest. I typed back. The loan demand stands. 48 hours. 3 dots appeared, then disappeared. Then appeared again. You're going to destroy everything we built together, came his response. You already did that, I wrote back. I'm just making sure I don't go down with the ship. The next morning, I called my lawyer to discuss the divorce proceedings. Not to finalize them, but to understand my options. How long I could delay, what assets I could protect, how much control I could maintain over the situation. The conversation was enlightening. As the injured party in a marriage, I had more power than I'd realized. More time to make decisions, more leverage to negotiate terms, more protection under the law. I also called a financial advisor, someone who specialized in complex asset protection. The money I'd moved was safe, legal, and extremely difficult to claw back through divorce proceedings. But there were ways to make it even more secure. By afternoon, I'd established a trust, moved the funds through offshore holdings, and created a financial maze that would take teams of lawyers months to navigate. Michael called me that evening, his voice hollow. Diana, my business line of credit has been frozen. My corporate accounts are under review. I can't make payroll next week. Then you'd better find alternative financing quickly.
Please.
I have 12 employees who depend on me. You should have thought about your employees before you decided to destroy our marriage. This isn't just about us anymore. Other people are going to get hurt. The manipulation was obvious, but it still stung. Michael had always been good at making his problems everyone else's responsibility. Your employees will find other jobs, I said. Just like I'm going to have to reinvent my entire life. Diana, please. What do you want? Just tell me what you want. I looked around the hotel room that had become my temporary home. Anonymous walls, generic furniture, no history, no memories. A blank slate, which was both terrifying and liberating. I want you to understand, I said finally. I want you to know what it feels like to have someone you trust completely take away everything that matters to you. I understand. I get it. I hurt you, and you're hurting me back. No, Michael. You don't get it. You think this is about hurt feelings. You think if you apologize enough, if you negotiate skillfully enough, you can make this go away and move on with your life. I stood up, pacing to the window. Outside, the city sprawled in all directions, full of possibilities I'd never considered before. This isn't about feelings, I continued. This is about consequences. Real, lasting, life-changing consequences. The kind you can't apologize away or lawyer out of. What are you saying? I'm saying that for 12 years, I made your comfort more important than my own happiness. I made your dreams more important than my own ambitions. I made your needs more important than my own identity. My voice was getting steadier, stronger. And what did I get in return? I got a husband who sold my wedding ring to finance his affair with another woman. The silence on the other end of the phone was complete. Sarah told me, I said, about the $2,000, about the investment opportunity, about how you made her believe she was helping with our divorce by buying my ring. Diana, I can explain. Don't. Please don't insult me with explanations. I hung up and turned off the phone. That night, I made a decision. I wasn't going back to the life I'd had before. I wasn't going to rebuild what Michael had destroyed. I was going to build something entirely new. I opened my laptop and began searching for apartments in cities I'd always wanted to visit, but never had the courage to explore. Boston, where I could take art classes at the university. Seattle, where I could work for a nonprofit that actually mattered. Portland, where I could start the small business I'd always dreamed about. For the first time in months, I felt something like hope. The next morning brought a knock on my hotel room door. Michael stood in the hallway, looking haggard. He'd lost weight, I noticed. The stress was eating him alive. How did you find me? I asked. The credit card charges. Diana, we need to talk. I let him in, curious what he thought he could say that would change anything. He sat down heavily in the room's single chair. I've been thinking about what you said. About consequences. And you're right. I made choices without considering how they would affect you. I treated our marriage like a contract I could break whenever I found better terms. I nodded, waiting for the but. But this has to stop, Diana. What you're doing isn't justice. It's destruction. There it was. My business is dying. Sarah moved back in with her mother. The house is going into foreclosure because I can't make the loan payments. You're not just hurting me anymore. You're hurting innocent people. Like you hurt me.
Yes.
Exactly like I hurt you.
Don't you see?
You're becoming exactly what you hated about my choices. The words hung in the air between us. I'd been so focused on making him understand my pain that I hadn't considered whether I was becoming someone I didn't recognize. What do you want me to do, Michael? I want us to end this.
Properly.
With lawyers and mediation and fair division of assets. I want us to both walk away with something to rebuild our lives. I looked at him sitting there. This man I'd shared 12 years with. This stranger who'd sold my wedding ring to finance his betrayal. The anger was still there, but underneath it was something else. Exhaustion, maybe. Or just the recognition that revenge, even justified revenge, was a poison that hurt everyone it touched. I have conditions, I said. I'm listening. First, you pay for Sarah's medical expenses and support her through the pregnancy. Whatever she needs, no questions asked. He nodded. Of course. Second, you give your employees 2 weeks' notice and help them find new positions. Don't just abandon them because your business is failing. I'll do what I can. Third, we negotiate the divorce settlement through proper channels. 50-50 split of everything, no games, no hidden assets. 50-50 is fair. I pulled the ring from my pocket and set it on the table between us. It looked smaller than ever, its diamond catching the hotel room light. And you take this back, I said. He stared at the ring, then at me. Diana, I can't. Take it back. Sell it if you need to. Give it away if you want to. But don't make it my problem anymore. He picked up the ring slowly, turning it over in his hands. I loved you once, he said quietly. Really loved you. I know. I loved you too. When did it stop being enough? I thought about that for a moment. When had love stopped being enough? When had we stopped fighting for each other and started fighting against each other? I think it stopped being enough when we stopped being honest with each other, I said. When we started keeping secrets, making unilateral decisions, treating each other like obstacles instead of partners. He nodded, slipping the ring into his pocket.
I'm sorry, Diana.
For all of it. I know you are. He stood up to leave, then paused at the door. What are you going to do now? I'm going to disappear for a while. Figure out who I am when I'm not half of something else. And then? And then I'm going to build something new. After he left, I sat in the hotel room for a long time, staring at the place where the ring had been. The table looked empty without it, but also clean.
Clear.
My phone buzzed with a text from Sarah. Thank you for what you said to Michael. About the medical expenses. It means everything. I typed back. Take care of yourself and the baby. I will. And Diana? I'm sorry about the ring. If I'd known the truth, I never would have taken it. I know, I wrote. Good luck with everything. 3 days later, I was on a plane to Seattle. The city spread out below me like a promise, gray and green and full of possibilities. I'd rented an apartment sight unseen, enrolled in graduate school, applied for jobs with organizations I actually cared about. The settlement would take months to finalize, but the lawyers were handling it now. Fair division, no games, no tricks. Just two people who'd failed at marriage trying to divide up the remnants with some dignity. I kept some of the money I'd moved, enough to start over comfortably. The rest went back to joint accounts, available for the legal proceedings. I wasn't trying to destroy Michael anymore. I was just trying to save myself. 6 months later, I got a card from Sarah. A birth announcement. The baby was healthy, a girl. Michael was listed as the father, but not as the mother's partner. They'd broken up, apparently, sometime after the mediation began. I found myself hoping they'd both find happiness eventually. Sarah with someone who could love her completely, and Michael with someone who could tolerate his capacity for self-deception. As for me, I was learning to live alone. Really alone. Not just waiting for someone else to come home and give my life meaning. It was harder than I'd expected, but also more liberating. I thought about the ring sometimes, wondered what Michael had done with it. Sold it probably. Used the money for lawyer fees or moving expenses. Reduced it to what it had always been to him, a commodity, a tool, a means to an end. But for me, it had been something else entirely. A symbol, yes, but not of love. Of possibility. Of the person I'd been willing to become for someone else. Now I was learning to become someone for myself. It was slow work, rebuilding an identity from scratch. But for the first time in years, I felt like I was moving forward instead of just surviving. The city lights stretched out below my apartment window, each one representing someone else's story, someone else's choices, someone else's chance to start over. I was just one light among millions, but I was finally burning bright enough to see by.
And that was enough.